Hello everybody, Adam here, and before we get on with today's Table Chat episode, just a quick announcement. We are either about to hit or have just hit 3 pretty significant milestones in the life of the show. The first is the download milestone. We have passed 20,000 downloads and are on track for 25,000. That number just baffles me, it boggles me, it really does to think that so many people are listening to our show. Thank you so much for that, it means so much to us, it really does. The second milestone is that we're coming up to our 2nd birthday, and the third milestone is we are coming up to Season 4, which will be Shadows of the Jedi Chapter 2, as Ed Fortune once again takes the reins and takes us back to the desert planet of Cinnabale. To celebrate these 3 big milestones, we're having a giveaway with not 1, not 2, but 3 winners. They are a whole bevy of wonderful prizes which can be won in this giveaway: Star Wars books, merchandising, dice rolling trays, a whole ton of stuff, all of which is very generously donated by Malcolm and Liz Hazel and Chris Williams, who are some of our listeners, some of our biggest fans, and I just can't articulate how thankful we are for your generosity and allowing us to pay that forward to the rest of our listeners. So thank you so much, guys, it's really kind of you. But how can you win these fabulous prizes? So on both Facebook and Twitter there will be a pinned post coming out with this episode. You got to like us, you got to follow us, and you got to share that post using hashtag FMPodBig3. The winner will be drawn at the start of our interlude series, Prinkle's Excellent Adventure, which is going to be a mini campaign following everyone's second favourite Chadra fan having a very busy day on Port Haven. Our patrons are automatically entered into the competition as a thanks, so if you want to double your chances of winning, head along to patreon.com/forcemajeurepod. You can back us from as little as $1 a month and get access to a whole bevy of stuff, outtakes, advert from the shows, additional little bits of nonsense that we think you'll enjoy, Duren's Captain logs, ringtones, a whole manner of stuff, and our Patreon updates are currently coming every other week, so that you are never without your force majeure shenanigans. Right, that's enough from me. On with the show. You know how it goes. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. You're listening to Force Majeure, an actual play Star Wars podcast. My name is Adam and I'm your host, and I'm joined around the table by...
Hi, I'm Ross.
Hi, I'm Ed Fortune.
Hi, I'm Mim.
And I'm Mikey.
So today we are not doing an actual play episode. Today is our Table Chat episode, having now finished Season 3. So, okay then everyone, what do we think? How do we feel it went? What bits do you like? What bits did you not like? Where are we? How are we feeling?
You're so needy, Adam. You're so needy. What did you like? Tell me what you like. Tell me you love me.
Also, tell me what bits you didn't like. I need to know so I can learn and grow.
It was a real roller coaster for certainly for my character, and I think we all came into it with our character concepts, and now we have all hit points of change in our characters. They've all hit the character arc of something has happened which is big enough for each of us now, I think, to have altered our group dynamics and possibly our own individual personalities a bit.
So I still completely failed to find an actual physical voice for the character, but I found a voice for the character, and I really enjoyed where the character went. I had a lot of fun.
You went into space, mate.
Hey!
Sorry.
Yes, no, he went somewhere very deep, and that deep place was space. I had a lot of fun, and it's quite fun playing the darker sort of characters.
Oberon's growth over this chapter has been the standout kind of, because everyone, as you say, Mim, everyone's kind of hit their story beats and have grown as characters, but Oberon's arc because I feel like chapter 1, with it only being 10 episodes, and I deliberately kind of kept the pace up on that and the pressure up, so you had to kind of move quicker and quicker and quicker. There wasn't as much space, I felt, for kind of character growth. You kind of were who you were, and that's where we left it. Whereas this season, We've had some introspective moments. We've had chance to kind of show people's changes, and I definitely feel that the changes that Oberon has had have been the most pronounced of everyone. I really like where you're going, and I really like how Oberon sees the Force and his Force powers, which I think was highlighted quite nicely in episode 18, where you were discussing how your Force sense works and how it differs from your Foresee. And I really liked that visual. I thought that was really cool. And I'm interested where everyone goes, but I'm really interested to kind of see where that arc takes you next. Like I said, I thought everyone was great, but I'm really liking that.
No, I agree.
That growth. That
From
story.
Lassa's perspective, it's great growth, and it's totally growth in the area that she thinks that you need to grow. But also, from everything she has seen, she is there going the equivalent of, dude, timing, pick your moments. It's like at any point you could have started, Oberon could have started developing, an ethical dilemma or picturing what his own morality and what his codes are and whether they've been right. And it's like literally as we're about to go and deal with this plugged in, clearly absolutely monstrous, probably not even properly alive thing that we've called Mr. Flesh, charming name. And he's clearly going to absolutely kill us all. And that's when you get your morality. And it's like, wow. That's the best moment, but it's fantastic because it means that certainly my character is looking at you in a new light, but at the same time trying to figure out what this is going to do, because her first instance of you being really moral and really thoughtful about this is a time when she wasn't, and she had absolutely no qualms in continuing on with what we were doing. So it was a really interesting moment for her.
I've had a lot of fun with it. One of the things I've noticed with the Force in the various shows and stuff like Rebels and in the movies is that as they grow in the Force, the characters change. Luke is irrevocably changed by the Force. And it's not necessarily a good thing when you look at what happens to his character and his character's arc. Mm-hmm. And it's like you can't have that power without it doing something to you. And you look at your power set sometimes and you just go, yeah, that's going to change your perspective.
I'm sure we'll get to Agatha more specifically as we go on, but Agatha's probably annoyed with Oberon for the same reason Lasser is, of why you suddenly developed a conscience at that moment. Because up until then, Agatha was probably fine with Oberon as a warrior, but this moment where you suddenly pulled back that actually I'm going to be merciful to this guy was probably not what Agatha would have expected. More generally with Agatha, because we came up with this in the recent immorality episode, where you get asked the question, what exactly is Agatha's problem with Lasser? And it doesn't have a specific problem with Lasser. If Oberon had been in that situation, would have done exactly the same thing. J-Ren, he's got a bit of a connection to at this point, but Lasser and Oberon are equal footing on this level. He's not targeting one or on the other. It's just like that's where Lasser happened to be.
Yeah, Lasser, you're not special.
Yeah, I like that. First of all, the impression that it wouldn't matter if it had been Oberon, he would have done the same. All right, it's just the way Agatha is. If it was J-Ren, probably would have thought about it a lot more and not just picked them up and thrown them towards probable doom.
Well,
but
I am lovely.
Yeah, it is very much a case of no. You guys, I don't.
Backhanded.
No, there's not even a compliment there. It's just backhanded. You guys, I don't consider well enough to not use as props.
You see, there's a lean here with the character dynamic, because what we have is potentially we are a great villain party. We are potentially a great bunch of baddies, in the sense that you've got the merciless hunter, the con man, the pragmatic engineer and slicer hacker thief,
who has a mean streak and will use it.
Oh yeah,
and the muscle. And as a bunch of intergalactic criminals who have force powers and are running around doing space crime, which is like crime but with less gravity.
Oh no!
It would be so much easier if we all fell to the dark side, though.
If we were all villains, and this is the thing, when we were playing first season, there was a plenty of opportunity for us to kind of go that way, and we could have quite easily. It would have been a very different campaign and a very different show. But again, you make your character choices sometimes based on the group.
Apart from the fact that Adam keeps starting every episode by saying, "Where are our heroes?" We are a villain part.
Are we saying if Mr. Flesh had turned around and went, "You've come into my house, murdered my pets," the voice of Darth Vader, no less, then we would have seen ourselves in a different light?
Well,
That is what we did.
So certainly, if Mr. Flesh would have gone, okay, I surrender, I'd have still had him killed.
I'm just going to use the words from a certain point of view.
From the perspective of the Empire, you are definitely the enemy.
But I don't think... I mean, I'm looking particularly from Jiren's point of view, but Jiren's not a bad person. So I don't think he would have ever have purposefully decided to do something evil, because he's not. He doesn't like doing all of these. Crime is better if nobody gets hurt.
We would be a really gritty, dark DC or dark Marvel TV series if it wasn't for the fact that Jiren is walking through every scene with a sunshine, lollipops and rainbows and
It's
everything.
not quite like that, but he does care about every single one of the party, and therefore will act as the... if this was a Captain Planet thing, and we had a clone Captain Planet kind of thing, I think he would have the heart ring. I don't know what anybody else would have.
You wouldn't have any rings at all because it was on the other hand.
I still have that hand. We took it with us.
It doesn't smell nice
It's in Oberon's
anymore.
bag.
You're gonna, because I still see you as a bit of a mummy's boy, so I could totally imagine you coming home with someone's arm in your bag and then 2 weeks later forgetting to take it out. It's like, oh, I forgot about this. Or your mum has it washed and pressed and it's there in your bedroom.
No, Pringle's totally laundered the arm at this point.
No, Pringles had other things on his mind.
Prinkle has evolved dramatically this series. I like it.
As I mentioned to Mim earlier, I like the fact that Lasser did not like Prinkle at the start, and it's just we've met him, we've been developed with him, and he's lovely.
It is one of those things of, because I wanted Lasser to have this grumpy persona, this now I've been through the world and I don't like dealing with people because people let you down. She's meant to be older and a bit more bitter and worn down by the world. So I figured there's probably no one that I get on with. I like to do my job, get out and not socialise. So I had this impression that it didn't really matter what Prinkle was going to be. I'm not going to like them. And then we met them and he's just so lovely. It's so hard not to like him. And I think within the space of 20 minutes, it was like, oh, I love Prinkle. Prinkle's lovely, isn't it? I've always liked Prinkle. He's like, are you sure?
He's me. He's just your friend.
How can you not love that little face, that little voice?
So we recorded the last episode a little while ago. None of us have heard what the others' choices were, what the scenarios were.
Oh, that's the point. Yeah, so
do you think jumping off from that, you've got a significant character change coming that the others three, that the rest of us don't know about yet?
If I can just explain that to our listeners. So, the very final episode of this season, the Force Visions, they were all done individually. So, the only person who knows what happened in their Force Vision is the person who was in there, and the rest of the party won't hear what each other experienced until that episode, basically until you, our listeners, did, because that was the point that I compiled everything together and released it for them to listen to. So, yeah, as Ross is saying then, other than the final vision where they were all together, no one yet knows, at the point we're recording this table chat, what the other people saw.
Mm-hmm.
So
we had a brief discussion where we suggested what sort of things we'd seen, but we didn't say what we'd chosen in those things. So is that a pivotal moment for your character? Is that something that's going to affect how they are from that point on? Or?
For Jiren, it didn't change anything, but it did cement where he was going already, if that makes sense. It would kind of reinforced what his opinions were of the world.
I think Lasser had a very similar response of, I've been put in this situation. Well, I'm not going to play your game. So because she's one of those people that's always been, no, I'll do this my own way, my way or the highway, even if it's wrong and even if it's going to take longer. She's quite stubborn. Okay,
by contrast, I think Agatha may have been surprisingly heroic in his one then, but we'll see what happens.
Well, I mean, same question back to you then. Do you feel what you saw and experienced has changed Agatha's?
I don't know if it's changed. I think it's by presenting a choice which was two extremes, and then, I mean, you're giving them, it made it easier to choose one rather than the other. It was a difficult choice because I think it went back and forth a bit during that time, but it was, the choice he's made is possibly a bit more, I think he made the same choice he would have done prior to this, to the game starting, but for different reasons, which will affect how he is from then on.
Yeah.
I have a very nerdy answer, with this
I'm
because
surprised.
I am shocked and surprised.
so part of Oberon's background is, and he's alluded to it a couple of times, is he's been to the Carrion Plateau on Eradia, which is Grand Moff Tarkin's homeworld. And what is, if you've read the book Tarkin, and no one expects you to, it's great though if you fancy it. There's a whole bit where they explain why Grand Moff Tarkin is such a criff, and he essentially gets taken hunting with his family and goes through a terrifying childhood experience on the Carrion Spike, which is why the capital ship that he owns is called the Carrion Spike. And it's all about death and, doing right by yourself and being essentially selfish and evil.
I thought his capital ship was the Executrix.
I think it's his personal yacht or something like that. It's called the Carrion Spike.
Yeah. I can't imagine the Empire lets you name your own Star Destroyer.
I think
It's like a Build-A-Bear workshop, but bigger.
He's thinking
in fairness,
Tarky McTalk face.
no, it might be his personal yacht or his personal transport is called the Carrion Spike, and then his the ship that he actually owns. So Oberon finds himself on the Carrion Plateau, about to commit murder, essentially with his family, because the family that stays together. And he was given the choice, and he chooses a different path. But by doing that, that's him choosing to change his entire life.
Okay.
So he's made. So yes, the answer to the question is that a major decision? Yes, he's decided to be a different person.
Your sliding doors moment.
It's the sliding doors moment. It's like if you could turn back time and change everything that you've done, would you find another way? Yes, he would.
So, of the revelations then, at the end of the season, how do you feel about where the chapter ended?
As a player, I loved it. Absolutely fantastic. Really well atmospheric, and it worked so well on all of our levels. As far as the responses I saw from everybody, as a character, I think we're probably going to have to wait until Chapter 5.
Yeah, that seems fair.
As a player, the same. I was like, oh gosh, I actually didn't see that coming.
I didn't.
I did.
But we've been role playing together for a long time now.
Interestingly enough, though, whilst I kind of figured it out, Jiren doesn't have as much cunning as you'd think he does, so he had no idea.
That's something quite interesting. I hadn't figured it out either. But mostly I think because I realised Lasser doesn't care. And that was something I didn't expect. Because like, this is, your friend and mentor. Yeah, but it's nothing to do with her, really. It's all just more issue. It's like the whole thing about 10th Brother. Now 10th Brother isn't literally breathing down her neck. She's got bigger things to worry about, like where's our fuel going to come from? Where are we getting our next paycheck?
More pragmatic, more practical.
Yeah, so it was really weird to go, oh, heck, am I bad? Because Lasser doesn't care what's going on in the game.
You lack a fair bit of compassion, I've got to admit, as Lasser.
Ooh, I hadn't thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
You see, when Oberon eventually does sit down and think about what has happened with 10th Brother, he's going to have a very long think again about where you go. Because it's like, because the Force has pulled him in one direction. So he needs to figure out, is it the Force or is it your personal choices? Or is it your personal interaction with the Force? He doesn't know. It's obvious to players, it's obvious to people viewing the media how the Force works. But it's all instinctive.
I'd quite like to have that conversation in character, because I think Jiren has an idea about what... Because I think you're assuming a reason why the Force is pulling you in a particular direction. Because, you know what direction you're going in, but you don't know that's... If it was a compass, you'd know it was north. But there aren't any symbols on the compass of the Force. You just know you have to go that way.
It's a magical tapeworm, after all. How much moral?
It's not a magical
tapeworm. Can we give it?
Yeah, I should say for the record that canonically in the Coldfire Chronicles, it's not midichlorians. I've
always liked the fact that Qui-Gon is one of the only people who believes in midichlorians, because he's a bit out there, and which is why they sent him off to go and do trade negotiations, because it's that weird guy who believes in space bugs in the blood.
Keep him away from the younglings.
Yeah.
But he's got a doohickey goes, which
it's
he
a
waves
lady
over
shave. It's not real.
In the scene where they are talking about what little Anakin's midichlorian count is. I believe it's Ewan McGregor's character as Obi-Wan. The number that they say in his voiceover is not the number he says by his lips. You can clearly see that they went, oh, that's not a good enough count. We better change it.
A midichlorian count of 6? That's bigger than Master Yoda's.
No, I think his height was 6.
George, that sounds rubbish. Let's put it up to 20,000. Okay.
We've invented a scale. We've only got one value to decide how big the scale is. We think it's wrong.
Like better than Predator. Highest midichlorian count, better or less good than Predator. Mm-hmm. You're all looking at me. You are aware of the Better Than Predator scale.
I am not.
Yeah, it's a film rating.
It's
scale.
a film rating scale where you put in a film and it tells you whether or not it is better or not than Predator.
So is Citizen Kane better than Predator?
Yes.
I think it is, but I'll Google it. It is, for our listeners, www.betterthanpredator.com.
I have a controversial opinion. I haven't seen Predator, so the scale's not very useful.
Well, what I think you should do is go to isitbetterthanpredator.com and
type in Predator.
It's about the same.
Okay.
Also, go home and watch Predator. We'll rejoin Ross in a couple of hours' time.
I'm going to miss the table chat.
Well, let's see. You got Predator, then Predator 2.
Is that better than Predator?
Predator 2 is not as good as Predator. Is there anything else that kind of y'all want to say about the season before we start moving on to Q&As?
I kind of want to get to the questions, I have to admit.
We put out a call for questions on Discord and Twitter and at the start of a couple of episodes, and we have taken those questions and we have cut them out and we have put them in a pith helmet, because we're British, and being British, we all have pith helmets. So there'll be a picture of it going on the Instagram. There's quite a few questions in here about our characters. We're going to assume that we're just going to talk about our Coldfire characters, because this is the Coldfire table chat, and Shadows questions we can talk about Shadows characters at the Shadows table chat, unless it's directly addressing a Shadows character, in which case we'll see how it goes. So then, the first question from the helmet is from Blamed Cat. To everyone, which of the NPCs of this chapter would you like to see a spin-off adventure for?
Prinkle.
Well, I'm not going to say anything because I've written a spin-off adventure for Prinkle.
we have talked about this a couple of times before anyway.
And Adam's going to be coming round in a couple of weeks to record it. So, Prinkle.
No, it's clear that we all love Prinkle, but excluding Prinkle then, because we have met some others.
I would really like to have an adventure with the astromech, because Tugger is A, awesome, and B, I believe doesn't speak, so it just beeps and boops. That and of course Captain Sparkles and Tugger as their own kind of 4-panel comic strip spin-off, just almost like Calvin and Hobbes, but not.
That would work, actually. That would work really well.
Frawl.
He was special.
Hi, I'm Mikey. I'm the host for this adventure with Frawl. This is the first of 78 episodes.
It's all dialogue, guys. It's all dialogue.
Yeah, not really Frawl.
He's certainly got a place in my heart, though. I'm glad he exists. I just need to be prepared if we have a scene with him. Like extra tea, extra biscuits, stock up on stuff.
He's got a place in Duren's. You know that bit right behind your temples that really, really hurts when you have a migraine?
I could see a spin-off with Mr. Flesh where he introduces each story of utter terror, because like Mr. Flesh is stuck in one place, so all he has to do all day is tell stories to nothing.
You see, that's weird, because I can see a spin-off with Mr. Flesh where it's a situational comedy and he somebody moves into the Costa Favarum who's a neat freak, and that's how it was, like the Odd Couple.
I can see that working.
Your tendrils are on my side of the border again.
That's going to be very, very hard on my throat. Just, that's some whip-sawing voices.
And special guest star, Steve.
Oh, I like Steve.
I like Steve.
I'm glad we still got his head.
I tell you what, though, there could be an absolute spin-off of Port Haven. And it would just be Steve the droid and all the horrible capers that they get up to as they break the law in little entertaining ways and occasionally murder people. But it's okay.
Actually, the spin-off that I would like to see is Hawker and Pyjack in the collapse of the Republic, when they were off being rebels before the Rebel Alliance was a thing. But I'm not sure if that's just me being wildly self-indulgent, given that they're two of my NPCs. I feel it might be, but I think that would make for a cool...
No, I think that's actually a reasonable suggestion, and that's something that could actually be made. It'd be interesting because it's like a rough and tough look at the rebel era, not the rebel era, the wartime era.
It's the Magnum PI style opening.
Should we move on to the next question?
Yeah,
we have a significant amount to get through,
So this is a question from, seeing as we were talking about Hawker, from Lou. And it's from Lou to everybody. Although I think it's probably from Lou to Mim and Ross. Who would win in a fight between Agatha and Roy?
Roy.
There's no doubt in my head, because Roy has both a jetpack and guns, lots of guns. So by the time Agatha has swung a punch, as long as I've been given permission to use lethal force, you're getting a hole blown in you, boy.
Yeah, Agatha has the disadvantage if he doesn't have any range at all. He's got to run and get to you first.
Yeah.
But second answer to that question, the audience. We're going to make it spectacular for at least a couple of minutes. I don't know, if we get roll for initiative and Agatha gets to go first, and gets to manoeuvre and then gets to hit Roy, then he stands a chance. It's going to depend on that dice roll.
I'm sorry, but no, you don't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's interesting that we're assuming a fair fight, because the way that scenario actually works is Jiren talks to Roy. Roy talks to Jiren. Agatha punches Roy.
Jiren's mind tricks will not work on the droid.
Yes. Agatha punches Roy. There's a clanging noise, and Roy is not hurt.
That's true.
Agatha has disassembled several droids this season.
Yes, I know.
I've got a pretty impressive soak.
Yeah,
and I'm smarter than your average droid.
No, you're not.
You're right. I'm really not smart, but the person who owns me is smarter. Yeah. There is one thing that would possibly negate all of that, and that's the fact that I, Mim, have to roll the dice for Roy. So it doesn't...
You have rolled a lot of despairs.
I am pretty bad at dice rolling. It's a common gag around here, but honestly, I kind of need to start incorporating into my character idea the fact that whatever they want it to be or plan to be, they're a little bit crap at it. Just because I'm rolling the dice.
Next question.
This is from Mal Hazel to everyone. Who can do the best Dick Van Dyke Draxel Pinopolis impression?
I'm going to pitch, before we try, Mim wins, followed by Mikey, probably followed by me, and then like Ed and Ross just look at us with contempt.
On that, I'll go first. All right there, governor. That's about as best as I can do.
Don't want to do this game.
Okay, forfeit from Ross.
Hello, darling.
Mind how you go. See, I can't do it anymore.
Cheaty cup of tea.
See, as someone who comes from Essex and the London area, it's just one of those things that trying to get Dick Van Dyke is not to do a Cockney accent.
It's a jolly holiday with Mary.
Mary Poppins, as I live and breathe.
You do a wink, and double blink, and then something else happens.
I'm delay.
Next question.
From a Blamed Cat to...
Blamed?
Blamed.
This is from the Blamed Cat. He is a mighty talker from far away. Is
it blamed?
It's blamed.
It is blamed.
Golden.
Would you like to start that again?
Nope.
From a Blamed Cat to everyone. What does your character think or feel about their crewmates? Oberon would take offence at that question, to be honest. If someone asked him and put him on the spot and said, talk about your emotions, he'd just stare at the camera for some time. He's trying to figure out, because for most of his life, friends were people who would turn up that you then bought drinks for, or they bought drinks for you, and then you went and did fun, which he now understands to be, but a lot of the fun he had involved hurting other people in one way or another. So he's still figuring out how people in relationships work, especially ones that don't have a hideously imbalanced power dynamic. So he's trying to figure all of that out. So what does he think of? He likes Jiren, but he also is suspicious of Jiren because Jiren's too charming.
I'm definitely up to something.
He's definitely up to something. He likes Larsa, but he understands that Larsa doesn't like him, and that's fine, because he doesn't like him, so that's fine. He thinks Agatha's great, but he's never going to say anything about it, so that's fine. He's very worried about Prinkle, and the character of the entire crew that he likes the most is Tucker, which I think actually is really obvious. He gets on great with Tucker.
Yeah.
Droids, man.
Agatha likes J-Ren because J-Ren is very trustworthy.
Because they're mace.
Yeah. Oberon's a bit weird, especially that comment. The question we had of how old were you when you learned things could die was sort of probably sums up Agatha's impression of Oberon at that point. Yeah, you. As much as any of us deserve to be in prison, you definitely deserve to be in prison. Lassa might be concerned about this point because she's spending an awful lot of time on her own in that workshop rather than joining in with the rest of the crew.
You hear some angle grinding and cackling sounds.
But yeah, most of Agatha's experience with talking about emotions and stuff is going to come from his watching Heights and Depths, and he thinks that's how it works.
Oh dear.
You're all, from Jiren's point of view, his crew, but crew in a crime way rather than crew in a
Minions.
No, not minions.
Henchmen.
No.
Gang.
Gang. That's the word. You're all part of the gang, and he's worked with weirder people. He's worked with people who have more serious problems, and he realizes that each and every single one of you has a problem, and is not happy, and we're gonna get through it essentially because what Jiren wants out of life really. Is kind of friends, and he makes friends wherever he goes. But he wants people to be kind of happy in themselves, if that makes sense. I mean, he's all razzmatazz and planning and stuff like that, but he likes controlling's not the right word because he kind of gets freaked out when he uses his force powers. But he likes the idea that everybody will be able to better themselves. He's really warm to Lassa. Lassa seemingly is an easy person to understand. From Jiren's point of view, he knows what Lassa's reaction to everything will be. He likes you all, really. He likes Oberon, but realizes that Oberon's had a lot of darkness in his past, but can see that he's pushing forward to get better at it, and he's a man with a certain set of skills, so he's really useful to have around. He just wish he was comfortable in where he's going. And Agatha, he's kind of worried about the way Agatha's going because he's worried that Agatha is upsetting other people. But he realises Agatha's not doing that on purpose. So at some point in the next season, we're going to have a talk, but we don't know where. But he likes Agatha. Agatha's not annoying, say, Lassa on purpose. So you're all family, essentially.
It's quite a complicated question for me and Lassa because she's had such a journey that everything has changed a lot. Initially, she felt a little superior to everyone because you guys were convicted criminals. And whereas she's always understood that there's a fine line occasionally between being a criminal and living on the edges of society, doing someone a favour, taking advantage of something here and there, she's always had quite a separation that she's definitely on the other side of that line. She's not a criminal. And then as things have progressed, her opinions on everyone and everything have been forced to change a bit. Even if she doesn't really want to accept it, she knows things have changed. So originally, Jiren, she sort of looked down on. He was childish and too lucky for his own good. She's had to work quite hard, so she really looked down on him. And she really looked down on Oberon because he was a posh boy who, as far as she's concerned, would have had every opportunity to be a brilliant person, to do something amazing. And, that's all she saw Oberon as, that posh bloke. And then Agatha, she originally had more sympathy for because she could tell that something wasn't quite right with Agatha. He wasn't like any other Mirialan that she'd met. He was very closed off and quiet. And she was willing to go that Agatha's a bit different, so needs a bit more patience or understanding. And every single one of those has been thrown out completely. She now has more respect for Jiren because she sees that he's not malicious. He's a bit happy-go-lucky, but he is quite capable of thinking seriously about something, even if he doesn't let the seriousness of it come out and affect everyone else.
Jiren will certainly get you killed, but it's not. He didn't do it on purpose.
He didn't do it on purpose, yeah. And Jiren has put himself out there to try and do things that are meant to benefit people. Oberon, the amount of cruelty, that hunting mission was a massive change for how everything was. And then she's struggling to come to terms with the fact that you are trying to change yourself. But like I said, in really weird timings, in quite big gesture ways. She hasn't seen small developments. She's simply, from her perspective, seen big changes at strange times, which she's struggling to get hold of. So she doesn't know where to put you at the moment. She's unnerved by you because part of Oberon's personality scares her. She could see him doing absolutely terrible things, not just for a good reason, but because there's no reason not to, if you understand that. And then when it comes to Agatha, she can't give Agatha the benefit of the doubt anymore, and she's not just going, oh, well, he's a special boy, he needs a bit of extra help. It has become, no, I don't want that person anywhere near me. She doesn't feel safe with him. She doesn't trust him. And it's very difficult to find a way to deal with all that in character, because once they got the ship, she was very hopeful for a crew, a ship. I can just get on with life. We might be looking over our shoulder occasionally, but I'm sure we can get on with life. And she's ended up isolating herself a bit because the ship and her own thoughts about what's going on have become more important than the rest of the crew, because she just can't get a grip on the rest of the crew, apart from Jiren now.
She's become in some ways a lot more dangerous as well, because I mean, after the hunting trip, the whole thing where you hacked into Steve, you got the record, you went, did a whole lot of hacking eventually, almost on you single-handedly, let's just apply, I'm going to be dangerous, I'm going to do this thing, and nothing's going to stop me.
She got a little, I'm not sure the right word, it could be obsessed,
yes.
One could possibly say.
I would say that it is a weakness of your emotions.
It is an emotional weakness. Yeah, she got a little obsessed with how bad that trip went, because she had quite high hopes for it being a bonding exercise of doing something for a greater good, but it wasn't going to be too nasty. It was just, we might deactivate a few droids or whatever, or maybe get a local police force involved and then nip off on our merry way. And it turned into an absolute hellhole of things going on, because I'm going to shoot this thing in a place where it will deliberately hurt. Okay, that's weird. I'm going to completely abandon you and leave you absolutely helpless. Okay, I'm busy trying to manipulate bird things.
They were attacking you.
And she was not in her element. So.
No, I meant after that, when she took on Port Haven single-handedly.
Yes, she wasn't in her element, which is why she responded so powerfully to, well, I need to do something about this, because none of us were on the same page, it seemed, as to what we were doing. It was a really interesting time. And I know I've been speaking a lot at the moment, but it's just, at the moment, her opinions on everyone is she'd really rather not be there. But she is. And while there's a ship to keep her on and to keep her busy, and she's got other things to motivate her, she can't go anywhere else, really. It's more hassle to leave than to stay. So it's kind of a scary thing to say, but yeah, she's not feeling part of the crew or a team or a family. She's just here with you, and that's it.
Next question.
From Blamed Cat to everyone, what was one of the most satisfying moments for you as a player or as a GM this chapter? That question to contestant number 3, please.
For me, the most satisfying moment was the big reveal at the end of the chapter and the look on everyone's faces when that happened. I really enjoyed that. That was very, very cool, and especially because everyone kind of got a different piece of that puzzle, and to see it all kind of click in from various points, I very much enjoyed that. That was very, very good fun. I also very much enjoyed Lasser, Roll of Despair, and Oberon getting punted off the ship in the
so
tube.
hard.
It was just...
I'm sorry, Ed.
Mwah. It was wonderful. It was so good.
That was
As you may
beautiful.
have gathered from my manic, high-pitched giggling when that despair came up, it just made the session for me. I loved it.
I think my favourite moment for the entire season was Jiren losing an arm.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really, as I said before, I like it when my characters have bad things happen to them because it defines them, and it's not going to change how reckless he is, but it is going to change his dynamic with the crew.
Two things occur to me for Agatha. One's the conversation he had with Pyjack back in episode about 3 of the series, which was where he started actually trying to do something without hitting it.
Yeah.
and it was surprisingly successful, maybe, but it was
Yeah, that was
it
good.
was surprisingly heartfelt for him. And the other one was when he just fell asleep at the start of episode 18, having finally gotten back on board the Coldfire Mercy. So I thought, I haven't collapsed the entire session. I have no idea why, but I'm having the sleep now because I'm down to 1 wound, and that's it. We've been pummeled, and that's the excitement. That's the natural consequence of this point.
Actually, not dying in the midst of space for Oberon was quite satisfying.
Yeah, that would have made me feel bad about laughing, I've got to admit.
Me really bad for spending the advantages
It
that I had.
wasn't your
on
fault.
Not doing anything useful.
It was
just
not
looking
your
after
fault.
myself.
We saw you do it. It wasn't your fault.
For some reason.
Also, that and getting Prinkle to calm down.
I enjoyed the Prinkle. The Prinkle Oberon discussion was a lot of fun to have.
I've listened to that about 3 times now. It just makes me chuckle. It really does.
Next question.
From Rill to the whole cast, what colour Kyber crystal fits your character best? From Jiren, Disco.
We've discussed this briefly. Agatha's is a nice grey, cloudy-looking crystal that you can't really tell what colour it was.
Oh, black. Black. But like badly painted bedroom door black.
So not like the Darksaber black, just like goth black. Goth saber.
Black. Goth saber.
Goth saber.
It's got to smell ever so slightly of patchouli.
I'm going to go for green because I quite like green, and there's potential for it not being force green, but possibly being, who knows, maybe otherworldly cultish green. Check out the Night Sisters, people. Check them out.
Next question is from Lou to everyone. Which force majeure character is your favourite? So across both seasons, including NPCs, who is your favourite? Roy.
Roy.
Aww.
Yep, Roy.
It's the singing, among other things. No, it's the complete immorality.
Yeah.
Handing corpses.
Actually, can I change mine? My favourite character across all of them is Roy and Tychus, because they're the same character. They're just one character being voiced by 2 people.
Yeah, we do bounce off each other very, very well.
It's a lot of fun. It was unexpected fun as well, because I don't know, I had kind of a Mr. Bones idea going in with him, but he's just gone mental instead. I like it.
See, I hadn't read those books at the time we kind of came up with that duo.
And thank you, Disney, for keeping him as still canon, because he is crazy.
It occurs to me that actually what you are is that cliche of, that's that trope of wide and thin, or tall and short. You know how you get like
Little and large.
Yeah.
little and large, like
Not cannon and ball.
cannon and ball, that kind of
Fish and cushion.
I try to think what my favourite character is, but is it too sad to go, actually, I really love playing Roy. But otherwise,
that's
It's Prinkle. We all know it, Viv. Just accept it.
Thrall. No, it's probably Jiren at the moment, actually, because there's a lot of dynamic going on between him and Lasser, and it's a lot of fun.
Okay, next question.
This one's from Mark Eberhardt from the Coruscant Knights podcast. Yeah. Who is your favourite NPC to play? To me, Prinkle. Prinkle, I love him very much. Closely followed by Thrall, because he's a great deal of fun. But Prinkle, I really enjoy Prinkle. He's
the breakout character. He's going to get his own standalone sitcom.
Yeah.
Also from Mark Eberhardt to Adam. How much planning do you do?
Not a great deal. More than I do for a normal tabletop, because normal tabletop games that I run don't have a time limit, whereas I have to have an eye to this being an arc and a rough number of episodes to run. I write a hot open, which I tend to do a lot of work on to set the scene. Then I have a load of bullet points of stuff that I would like to happen, and I tend to have an idea of where I want it to end, and then I wing it session to session until we get there, if we get there. I did a bit more for the very final bit of this chapter, in that the first half of everyone's Force Vision was scripted, and I wrote those out in advance and sanity checked them through Lou to make sure that they made sense. But then obviously we winged how they finished, and there was no set finishing point for those visions other than when it felt right. But yeah, mostly not a great deal, bullet points and winging it, an experience. And moving on to what will be the last question of the episode.
From Ren, to those who have DM'd. Do you get a bit of control whiplash from bouncing from player to DM between seasons, or is it a needed break?
It's a needed break for me. Especially at the moment, because as we kind of closed off Coldfire, I was running 4 simultaneous campaigns with different groups with a degree of overlap of players, and had been for quite a chunk of the year, and I was burning out all of my creative muscles, so I definitely needed this switch over to the other side of the table. More generally, yeah, I think it still kind of applies for me. I like to change it up. I've got an awful lot of character ideas, and the more I DM, the more ideas I have for characters in that setting, which I will never get to play unless I can get to the other side of the table. And some of them make it through as NPCs, and like for all, and some of them don't. So, and also Shadows is fun. I really like playing Tychus. So I'm very much looking forward to being on the other side of the screen going forward.
So I could play any game that Adam runs all day long, because he's an absolutely amazing DM, and I could certainly play Oberon all day long, and I'm having a lot of fun with this. It's now my turn, and I really like telling stories, and I really like running stories, so it's like there's not so much whiplash, it's just telling stories in a different way. I get to shift from playing one character and kind of examining my own navel and going, oh yes, get into the role sort of thing, and doing all of that, to playing an entire world. And who doesn't want to do that at some point?
This podcast is the first time us 5 have ever played together as a group, because I've been playing with Mikey for a long time. I've been playing with Mim for a couple of years. I've never actually tabletopped with Ed or Ross. I've LARPed with Ed many years back, but I've never actually tabletopped with Ed, and I've never tabletopped or LARPed or anything with Ross until we actually started this podcast. And we didn't really have much of a session 0 when we first started everything, because there was logistical twizzles when we first got going. So Coldfire kind of launched cold, shall we say. We didn't really have the lead in that, I think. And also, when we started this, we're going back 2 years now that we've been recording and playing, and how I ran games then is not how I run games now. I'm a bit more aware of, for a long time, I've been playing with the same small group of friends and never really branching outside of that for over a decade. And now that I have branched outside of that a bit more, I would definitely have started this differently to get a feel of each other's play styles and what we want from the game and how we approach things. And I think that, yeah, especially with Coldfire being a short season, certainly season 1 was only 10 episodes, which was 3 days of recording. It wasn't enough time to get the feel for how we all work until we really started Shadows, and then had a lot more episodes, and then back to Coldfire when we could start getting a real measure of the table dynamic. I think certainly that's so.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also by changing and shifting it up a bit, we don't get complacency, and we don't get into a rut where we're always shifting and learning and growing, which is candy to creative types.
So, well, that is everything for this episode. We hope you have enjoyed this peek behind the screen. we have a hat still full of questions, so we are going to do another questions and answer episode that will be joining you in a fortnight if you can wait that long. So I think for the moment, that's goodbye from me.
And from me.
And for me.
And it's goodbye from them.
And Mikey.
Oh, them was me. Sorry.
So thank you everyone for listening. Thank you very much as always. And we will see you next time.
Toodles.
Force Majeure is played using the Star Wars Force and Destiny game system by Fantasy Flight Games and Lucas Books. Our intro music for this season is Unholy Night by Kevin MacLeod, and our outro music remains Suburban Outlaw by Forget the Whale, both used with gratitude under the Creative Commons license. If you like the show and want to interact with us, we are on Twitter, we are on Facebook, we are on Instagram, all of which are at Force Majeure Pod, though Twitter is probably where you're going to find us more regularly. If you enjoy what we do and want to support the show, there's 3 ways you can do that. The first is via our Patreon at patreon.com/forcemajeurepod. The second is by buying us a coffee at ko-fi.com/forcemajeurepod. And the third way is by rating and reviewing us on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, anywhere where you can find us. We really like reviews. It tells us that we're telling the stories that you want to hear and helps other people find us. Thank you very much for listening. We'll see you next time.